We start in Pierce County, where voters will see, at least at this point, they're set to see one of the charter amendments, Amendment 53, on their ballot. And this asks voters if, in fact, they would like to make the position of sheriff in Pierce County an appointed rather than elected position. So it would be the Pierce County executive who makes this appointment. No qualifications, even for sheriff. He could appoint his best friend if he wants to. And this position would not be subject to recall. So voters are going to be asked if, in fact, that's what they want to do. Um, the Pierce County executive's appointment of a sheriff would be starting January 1 of 2027, even though current sheriff in Pierce County, Keith Swank, is set to serve another 2 years. He would be removed from his position if, in fact, voters approve this charter amendment. Probably not something that a lot of people are even aware of, and the amendment on the ballot may not even end up being there. We're going to get into all that, but at first, I want you to see Sheriff Keith Swank explaining that he really thinks this amendment is entirely directed at him because some people don't like his speech.
Their main purpose was to remove me from office because they didn't want to do with the recall process because they wouldn't stand muster in court because I haven't done anything wrong. And they want to make the sheriff an appointed position because the current executive is a Democrat on the far left, people say. I don't have too much trouble with him. We have our differences, but we work well together, I believe. But anyhow, people who were running for that position want to make the sheriff an appointed position. They're banking on it that this county is a Democrat county now, and that if they have a Democrat executive, they'll be able to put a like-minded sheriff in place. So I'm hoping even people who don't like me will say, hey, I want the right to vote for my sheriff or against this guy if he runs again. Now, the conservative districts, the first, second, and third district in the county are conservative districts. Fourth, fifth, and sixth, four, five, six, seven, lean to the left. Some of them are really, like the fourth district is far left, right? And so the first, second, and third, those people overwhelmingly will want the sheriff to remain in an elected position. And they turn out to vote. If they turn out in high numbers, we'll stand a good chance. But if they don't, then the people in the fourth district, which is Tacoma, which should not really have the right to vote on a sheriff because we don't police that area at all, they could overwhelm it because those are the people who are radical and they really just want, they're the ones that go out and yell, no kings, referring to Trump, and then they want to make their executive the king of Pierce County, right? So, which is easy to remember. Anything they accuse the right of doing is what they're doing. So anyhow, to answer your question, I think people District 1, 2, and 3 are going to stand up and vote that way, and just have to pick up enough people on the other districts because even people who don't like me hopefully will vote to say, hey, we want to keep the sheriff in elected position.
Now, there have been some Pierce County residents that showed up at Charter Commission review hearings earlier this year when they were kind of wading through a whole bunch of potential amendments. And just a quick explanation that Pierce County operates as I think there's about 7 other counties in the state that have their own charters that basically operate as sort of mini constitutions for the county, if you will. I know that's a very simplified explanation, but they can come up with their own sort of rules that they want the county to operate by. And every 10 years, they go back and basically decide, okay, we're going to put these before voters and let voters decide what they think. So we're at that 10-year mark. And that's why there's going to be a series of amendments for Pierce County voters to weigh in on the November 3 ballot. But even some of the people that don't like Keith Swank who showed up at these hearings have said, I don't like him. I would not vote to keep him as sheriff after his current term expires, but I want to be able to vote on the next sheriff. I don't want the county executive to simply be appointing who he thinks should be our sheriff. So there's a lawsuit that's been filed over this now. And one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit is Holly Rogie, former Charter Review Commission member herself. Other plaintiffs include Jeff Joseph, private citizen, and also a precinct committee officer for the state GOP, and he was on Keith Swank's campaign committee as well. So, full disclosure there, he obviously supports Sheriff Swank. And the other plaintiff in this lawsuit to keep this amendment off the ballot is former state auditor Brian Sonntag. He's a Democrat, but he believes very firmly that this referendum or this amendment on the ballot shouldn't be there. He believes it is unconstitutional. So I spoke to all three of them this morning, as well as their attorney. And here is Holly Rogie, the former Pierce County Charter Review Commission member, explaining why she is a party to this lawsuit.
I believe that this is unconstitutional, that because in the Constitution, and we heard this from members of the public, that this is a constitutional position. There is no provision in the Washington State Constitution that allows for an appointment of the office of the sheriff. And so when this proposal was submitted by Commissioner Hunter, I spoke against it, and so did the community. We did have some community come out in support of it, but I believe the overall majority was against it. They already voted in 2006 by a 66% majority to have an elected sheriff, and they voted as recently as 2024 for Keith Swank. And so the voters have voted. Their voice has been heard, and they were really upset that their judgment was being questioned and that they were going to have to deal with this again. So I believe firmly in representing my community, and the community came out very strongly against this proposal. And so I want to represent the voice of the voter, which will be taken away if this gets passed.
As I mentioned, former state auditor Brian Sonntag is also a plaintiff to the lawsuit. He's a Democrat, and he did not support Keith Swank in 2024 on that ballot. He supported Swank's opponent, but he feels very strongly that taking voters totally out of the picture here and making the sheriff in Pierce County an appointed rather than elected position is unconstitutional.
This is not a partisan issue. It's not a partisan office. It's a question of right and wrong. And it is absolutely wrong to be able to, with a charter amendment, eliminate not just the office, but the current office holder's term halfway through his elected term of office. I've never heard of anything like that. I've never seen anything like that.
So we'll see what happens with that legal challenge. Their attorney told me that September the 4th has been scheduled for consideration of the injunction that they hope a judge will agree to keep this off of the ballot. But back a moment here to Sheriff Swank, because I asked him to share what went down last week. I had seen his social media post a few days ago about what happened at a law enforcement graduation ceremony in Burien. Pierce County Sheriff's Office had two deputies graduating, so Sheriff Swank showed up to see that graduation ceremony. And he said that after it was over, a friend of his from the Seattle Police Department, where he worked for 33 years before going to Pierce County, came up to him and said, "Hey, the new interim chief for Seattle, Andre Sales, wants to meet you." And so, and this friend of his from SPD said, he's a good guy. So Swank just thought that maybe he wants to talk about something to do with policing in the state of Washington. Maybe he's a like-minded guy. So he went up to interim chief Sales after the graduation ceremony had completed and said, hey, nice to meet you, whatever, niceties were exchanged. And then he said that interim chief Sales attempted to tell him something in his ear. Sheriff Swank is hard of hearing. He's lost almost all hearing in his right ear, and his left ear he does wear a hearing aid for, but he's, got a hearing disability there. So it was a lot of noise in the room. He said, "Let's go outside and chat." So they went around the hall. I don't know if they were still inside actually, but outside the main room where a lot of people were. And I should note that Keith Swank has been very openly critical of the former police chief, Shawn, who was forced to resign right after the bite of Seattle and all of that, with Mayor Katie Wilson basically insisting that he resign. Keith Swank has even called Shawn Barnes a buffoon at one point. I don't know if that was a video post or just something he put online, but he's been pretty openly critical of Shawn Barnes. So that's the setup for then I'll let Sheriff Swank take it from here as to what was exchanged.
And he leaned over to me, and I thought he was going to tell me something about how crazy Seattle is, because I've been talking smack about it, right? About what's going on there. He leaned over to me and he said this: I have a message for you from Shawn. And so then I went, oh, then he said, anytime, something to this effect. And I want to say, I don't know the exact words, but I know the exact intent. Anytime you want, just get a hold of this buffoon. Because I had called Shawn Barnes a buffoon on X, right? And so that means people can say whatever they want to say. What that means is anytime you want to throw down, anytime you want to fight, I'm a man. I've been a man for 58 years. I was a cop. I've been a cop for 35. I was in the Army before that. You know what I mean? Like, that was exactly challenging me to a fight. Now, normally I'm not at a loss for words, but I wasn't quick-witted enough, because if I would have been, all I said was, wow. And I kind of chuckled. And then this guy who wanted to meet me, who really only wanted to deliver a message, he walked away. So he really didn't want to meet me. And he's really not good people. Both of these guys come from a culture of thuggery, wherever it is they're from. Like, they're the boss. And if you say anything to them, they'll fight you or do whatever. That's what they're probably used to doing. That's why they're so terrible. And this guy, Sale, should be relieved from duty also, right?
I did reach out to the Seattle Police Department for comment on this and received this response from Sergeant Patrick Michaud. He said via email, we don't want to get into a public debate with the sheriff, but this is not a true recollection of the conversation. I went back and said, okay, so what does Andre Sales contend he actually said to Pierce County Sheriff Keith Swank? And again, he responded back, we're not going to, go back and forth with the sheriff on this, but his recollection is not true. So don't know what Andre Sales says he said or didn't say, because they're not sharing that. They're just saying we're not going to get into a back and forth.